So we'll start. Let's have a couple of minutes of comments. I want to thank everyone for coming here today. I hope you had a great opportunity to interact with each of the different designers and architects, get a lot of your questions answered, see what we think is going to be a beautiful project, and certainly well needed and well desired by our staff, police staff, both the sworn and civilian. So thank you for coming here tonight. We'll jump right into the agenda by first asking the building committee to just stand up and introduce yourselves to the citizens, starting with Lieutenant Savino.
Good evening, Lieutenant Scott Savino, Police Department, been on the job for 22 years.
Captain Ken Patno, Police Department, 30 years.
Susan McGuire, Probation Officer, Franklin, Hampshire Juvenile Court.
John Height, Northampton Housing Authority.
Officer Michael Allard, Northampton Police, 20 years.
Bob Osberg, I'm a citizen who serves on the Capital Improvements Committee.
Dave Pomerantz, Director of Central Services for the city.
I'm Ray Kinghorn. I'm with Pinnacle One. I'm the owner's project manager for the project.
And I'm Captain Joe Carcass. I've been on the police department for 30 years also.
I'm Juanita Forsyth. I'm a citizen volunteer on the Police Building Committee.
I'm Jean Henry Hoos, and I'm a citizen volunteer also.
I'm David Narkowitz, and I'm the city councilor from Ward 4.
And I'm Chief Russ Inkwitz, Chief for 14 years. City Councilor David Murphy is momentarily late, but will be arriving. And the only absence we have is Anthony Patillo, who's the building inspector for the city in Northampton. Just to give you a couple quick minutes of the history of this project. I became chief in 1994, and one of my largest goals since that time has been getting a new police facility for our agency. We're operating out of a 9,000 square foot building that was built in started in 1963, completed in 65. It was just woefully undersized and outdated for our needs. In 2003, I asked for and received approval of the Capital Improvements Committee to get $35,000 to hire a needs assessment consultant, and that firm was Rebanks Architect out of Toronto, and Gail Bienick. John Pepper from Rebanks is an internationally known police specialist in design. He's designed the Amherst Police Station, has participated in multiple public safety building designs. In 2004, he completed the original needs assessment, but at the time we were unable to move forward due to funding issues, the economic times for the city. So then again in 2005 and 2006, it was thought that we should start really looking at this, moving ahead. John Pepper was brought back. Gail and Bienick, they reintroduced different crime statistics in the organizational needs report, which is available online on our website, has been since the formation of the building committee. It shows that we need much more space. We're way undersized, but I'm not going to keep repeating that. In around about 2006, conversations with the mayor of the Capital Improvements Committee, representatives like Rob Osberg and Jim Dossel, decided it was time to seriously get moving forward on this. The building committee was formed in the fall of 2006. The building committee had met for almost 2 years now. Our first step was looking at whether or not we're going to do the construction manager at risk process, which is new under the construction reform. It creates a much more interlaced process between the design team, the construction manager team, and the overall project manager. We went out and requested for qualifications and eventually hired Pinnacle One, which Ray Kinghorn represents as the city's representative, as the overall project manager, and their firm will segue into the clerk of the works as the process goes on. So there's continuity for that representative to the city. And we then went out for architectural firms, and I don't recall the number, but I think we had about 13 firms interested. They were whittled down, they gave presentations, they came forward, and eventually Gail and Bienick won the full committee's approval to move forward with John Pepper on board. Some of the groups that you've heard of, Teagan Bond, local group, Berkshire Design, they're part of the Gail and Bienick team, and you've met some of them here tonight and seen some of their work. During that process, in the construction manager firm, we started to look at doing our request for proposals for that, worked with the state attorney, inspector general's office. It was relatively new to the state, so it took us a little longer than we wished. But in the end, it's a process I think will give us a really high-quality project for the lowest dollar. There's concerns about environmental issues, building a Leeds building. So we went out and hired as a consultant Intermodal, a firm out of Ontario with an outstanding reputation. And they have come forward and they have some material back there talking about all the points that can be scored for the design going into it, all the light-saving opportunities, electricity savings, et cetera, et cetera. And our goal set by the mayor was for a Leeds silver building. And by the rating of the points that we've gotten with what we know we're going to do already, we're looking at a Leeds gold rating, which is a step higher. This building is already going to be designed for potable water supplies, water collection on the roof, for bathroom flushing, et cetera, for so-called gray water. Work is being done with Intermodal. We'll get a report in the full building meeting about geothermal issues, a potential cost savings, cost-benefit analysis, and also photovoltaic. So those are some of the things that the committee's been working very hard on. I thank everybody for the work we've gotten to this point with a lot of design changes, trying to blend, as I said on other occasions, the historical significance of an 18th century style building that's so important in the downtown area with moving to the future, which is an environmentally sensitive building, efficient to run and inexpensive to run over the long haul, which incorporates a fair amount of glass for light collection and solar gains. So that is where we are at today. We went through the construction manager risk process, and a finalist was selected, was vetted by a subcommittee. The full committee voted to go further with negotiations. The contract later in the formal business meeting will be introduced to the firm that was recommended to the full committee, and we'll be able to take a committee vote to decide whether or not to execute that contract. And at that time, they're formally on board. So that's my little historical synopsis. I guess that was longer than 2 minutes. But I felt it important. Some people may not have heard that before, or how we got here, or how long it's been. But I just wanted to get it out there for the community and actually for the benefit of NCTV. It was kind of the broadcast here today. So with that said, we'll get to the agenda and commence the meeting. You've had the opportunity to interact directly. We set time aside in the regular committee meeting for formal public comments. If anybody wants to approach the podium and make a specific statement. And there won't be any interaction between the full committee. It's just any feelings, positive, negative, or whatever, based on what you've seen tonight. And we'll take note of it. There's time in the agenda afterwards for the design team to talk with the committee and interact or have dialogue with a lot of the things that they picked up, comments positive or negative during the interaction. So what you said there won't be forgotten. It will be brought up later. But if you feel the need to address the committee now, you may do so. And if you do, then you can get up and please state your name and address, so our minute taker will be able to note it.
Russ,
John?
would it be okay to ask you a question?
Sure.
And it's one that I think will help to move this discussion forward. One of the things that we talked about a long time ago was location of a police station downtown on the parking lot site next to the existing police station.
Mm-hmm.
How come downtown as opposed to, in an outlying section of the city? Or in another location downtown?
Sorry, that was I didn't bring up, I was trying to shorten my speech. I mean, the site selection was part of our original needs assessment. We started with 14 different potential sites. We whittled it down to a few. I felt it was very important, as did the mayor and other folks, and also through research, that the presence of a police facility headquarters in a downtown immediate business area is a sense of safety and security, and it's actually an economic engine to drive businesses to feel safe and locate in the downtown area. It also has a particular financial impact for us because of our co-location right with the courthouse, the number of calls, the majority of our calls from the downtown business area, the higher number of officers that are assigned are in downtown. So the decision was made to locate it in the immediate downtown area. And unfortunately, the site that we selected is not large enough for a free-flowing one-story building, and that's been part of the difficulties for the designers to try to squeeze it in and also incorporate more parking for public use, which is what this facility does. But that's the value of it being downtown. And I think that answers your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to get, people who look at a downtown site and say, why there and not somewhere down on King Street?
The cities that we evaluated, communities that decided for the sake of convenience and cost savings to build out in their outlying areas have all reported that public access is poor, if we built in the outlying areas, there's no public transportation, it's not the core. It's difficult for people to get to, and it interferes with your patrol deployment in most important areas. Okay.
Is this on?
And it's not going to amplify anything, just for
Oh,
us.
okay. Claire Bateman, 43 Center Street, next door to the police station. And I just want to second the keeping it downtown. I think it's critical, absolutely critical to have it downtown. But that isn't what I stood up here to say. I was somewhat dismayed to find that, I guess it's monetary considerations, don't allow for a roof over the second story where most of the police cars will be stored, because I have a great view of their struggles when we have a 6 to 8 inch snowstorm, of how they try to get their vehicles out. And I would like, if it's at all possible, to please try to work in some kind of shelter over that second story so the police don't have to struggle with snow.
Is that something that you could see from your,
You betcha I can.
okay, well, I know you can see
I
now.
stay up from midnight till 2 the
Well-
days that they come in and clear that.
And it's, oh, yes, no, is it gonna be visible from, when they build, when the new police station is built, if it's built according to what's on the wall right now, how many people in your building are gonna be able to look out the window at people parking up there? How many windows are there that overlook that from your building?
Actually, not too many windows from our building will look over the parking because they will be blocked by the police building itself,
Right, okay,
which goes up to basically our 3rd floor.
yeah, okay.
And so they will look into, I was more concerned about privacy issues between the police offices and our therapist's offices.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment?
My name's Tom Douglas. I live in Northampton. I was just curious, I have a few questions. What percentage of the architecture fee is spent now? Wondering where you're at in the drawings.
I don't have the financial spreadsheets in front of me
Do you know, well, when are you going out to bid for the project?
for the hiring of the
Construction,
construction
yeah,
manager.
when-
That process is about to be completed tonight.
When will you start construction?
That's completely up to once the construction manager firm is,
Are you talking a year or 1 month or 6 months or?
we're hoping sometime in the fall.
Okay, so.
Original
so
plan
you-
was made, but
If you're going out to bid sometime in the fall, which is about a month away, you probably spent 90% of your design fees now, right? At least.
I didn't say we're going out to bid in a month. I said we're about to hire the construction manager.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out, my basic question is, what's the point of this meeting, and is there real room for public constructive criticism if almost all the design work has been spent already? Because if you've already gone through probably 90% of your architecture and design fees, you're pretty locked into what you're going to do. And there's very little wiggle room right now. So you're just showing what's going to happen.
There's 3 significant phases in the design: schematic design, design development, and then construction documents.
Yeah, I'm an architect, I'm
Okay.
aware of that.
We're just in design development now.
Oh, okay.
We're not any further than that.
So you could actually get to finish your construction documents with all the mechanical drawings done in a month or 2?
Now, we're hoping that what we'll do is we will go out early with site, concrete, and steel, and get those 3 packages out on the street, and bid those 3 to get that started. And then the remainder of it will be bid after we get going. Our attempt is to get out of the ground this winter, or we may be stuck until the spring.
So just in terms of the design process, I mean, you still have to get through the Downtown Architectural Commission. If they were to suggest any radical changes to the facade, are you too far along now to backtrack? No? No?
no, I would say no.
Sure. Because the hotel project, they came to that board during schematic design. So they were very, very early on in their design phase, and they made a lot of changes after the first few meetings with the Downtown Architecture Commission. So it seems like if you're waiting that long to go to downtown architecture, you're going to go out to bid very quickly afterwards. There's very little room for change. So I'm wondering what level of constructive criticism actually will be available.
That's why we're having the meeting, sir. If you have specific comments, this is the time to share them or put them in writing and provide them to us.
Okay. I have one other specific question. There is, I believe, an easement that goes through your proposed garage, right? That connects Gothic to Center Street.
And that's an abutter, and I know you work with that abutter, and we've had conversations with that abutter.
Right.
And I think those conversations about that should probably take place between the parties involved.
Well,
So
what is the status of the easement? I just didn't see any notes on the drawings.
Again, it's a negotiation that we're having with the owner of the property.
Okay, but I thought this was a public comment, or open public forum.
If you want to make a comment about the police
Well,
facility, sir.
Russ, I don't think that we should be discussing negotiations on an easement
Okay.
at a public meeting. There is an easement,
Yeah.
and there is work that needs to be done, and things that are being discussed. But I think the chief's right, we shouldn't be talking about what our position and the owner's position is now on that issue.
Okay, in other words, it's not a topic that's open for discussion then. So,
Apparently not.
okay, all right, well, thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none? Move on to the next agenda item. On the agenda was approval of the 2nd of July 2008 minutes. It was pointed out to be my co-chair. There's some errors that need to be corrected that we will do before the next meeting instead of going through a lot of it and taking up your all folks' time tonight. So we'll move right to item 3A. This is a report from the construction manager at Risk Subcommittee, Dave Pomerantz. Also, Juanita was on the subcommittee. I thought she was in Philadelphia, but she's not leaving till tomorrow, so she can be here tonight. David and Juanita represented the committee on a subcommittee for the review of all the CMAR applications, requests for qualifications, and also sitting on that subcommittee, as required by the construction reform law, was Ray Kinghorn from Pinnacle One and Bert Edgen from Kaler and Bennett. So, David?
Thank you, Chief. Very briefly, what the selection committee did was we had initially put out an RFQ, request for qualifications, for qualified construction management firms. And we received 8. We reviewed those. They met the minimum qualifications. We then put out an RFP, a request for proposals for a construction management firm to actually work with this group in the construction of the new facility. And through a process involving reviewing price and non-price proposals, as well as a series of interviews we conducted, we ended up ranking using very specific criteria those firms that we got to the interview stage. And in the end, came up with a final ranking of firms that we felt could be qualified or would be qualified to work as CMAR on this project, and ended up ranking Bar and Bar as our first choice as far as having met all the qualifications that were established in the RFP. That being said, at this point, the selection committee would like to recommend to the full building committee that Bar and Bar be the CMAR firm to work with the police building committee on this new facilities project.
Is that a form of a motion?
We'll make that a motion, yes.
So there's a motion on the floor to support.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Captain Conkis. Any discussion by the committee? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of accepting the recommendation to deliberate over the selection of Bar and Bar as a construction manager at risk firm? Please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. introduce Bar and Bar here tonight?
Sure. Representing Bar and Bar tonight here, we have Steve Killian and Bill Quadro.
Gentlemen? Glad to have you on board.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to working with you. As part of this process, the actual contracts that already have Bar and Bar signature on because of the vote of the committee needs to be signed. Captain Conkis, you have the various three-ring binders to circulate for the committee's signature on the contract execution page. Oh. Councilor Murphy just joined us. I commented he was running a few minutes late. He's just joined us. The minutes without him coming in, we're in a few minutes. Thank you very much. Okay, next, as the signature page goes around for the committee, the next order of business is actually for members of the design teaming committee. If any of the participants, we've asked them to take notes of any comments, both positive, negative, through the interaction. So why don't I have the lead architect and your team step up and make any comments, talk to the committee about issues that came up, or not, whatever the case may be.
Where would you like us to?
Right at the podium is fine. Just to give us a highlight of what you've heard and seen.
Sure. My name's Curtis Edge, and I'm one of the principals at Kalo and Beanick Architects. With me today are representatives from Ty and Bond, Berkshire Design, as well as representatives from our firm, Kalo and Beanick. We have had the opportunity to discuss some of the materials that have been presented in the back of the room. Plans of the new facility. Some of the PD staff who we've been interacting with for quite a few months now as the project has continued to evolve. There are some programmatic things that will continue to be resolved within the facility. In general, there aren't any major pitfalls to the concepts that are being presented.
Hey, Kurt, could you speak up a little bit? I know you're trying to speak both to us and to the audience.
Yeah, I'm
Do you feel
sorry.
better standing over there, Kurt?
Yeah, sure.
Everybody?
Close the door.
Whatever makes you comfortable, please.
Just not having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry. Anyway, in addition to some of the programmatic issues that we were discussing within the facility, some of the public comment that we heard is the need to make an appropriate building for the downtown, something that fits within the urban fabric that is being inserted, and we echo that concern. The building itself, how we treat the entrance to the police facility that the public will use in most cases, how that's identified, the area in front of it, whether it's a public space, whether it's just a door off the sidewalk, those types of issues. And those are issues that we are continuing to address in what I call the evolution of the project. The drawings that you see out there today, the computer renderings, are several weeks old, whereas some of the drawings have been updated as recently as a couple of hours ago. So there will be some inconsistencies, but the concepts themselves have not changed, the overall concept. So while we may be focusing in on details, the general concept isn't significantly different. It's just how we're addressing that concept, if you will. One comment that we heard was regarding the parking deck on the Gothic Street facade. The desire to make that I'll say another compatible neighbor with People's Institute, the former bank building on the left side of, as you're facing the parking deck, and the courts building directly across the street. Some of the material selections, the computer rendering shows it as basically concrete. Well, we've been working with, discussing with Bar and Bar over the past month in good faith, even prior to their, ratification, their contracts being signed, we understood that in an effort to keep the process moving, the sooner that we got involved with Bar and Bar and got that dialogue going, we could start talking about issues of constructability, trying to contain costs, and aesthetics. So there's a balance. So some of the detailing of trying to insert some brick and what that will do from an aesthetic perspective, and from a constructability perspective, we've met with precast manufacturers on how those details go together so that we can propose something that is cost effective to construct. So it's a balancing act. One of the items that we heard tonight was the concern that we pay close attention to the downtown architectural, central business district's architectural guidelines, and we've been looking at that for quite some time, and I just will say that, as I mentioned to that particular citizen, that again is another balancing act. One side of you, if you read that, would say that, well, you try and downplay large areas of glass. Well, from a sustainability perspective, we're trying to get as much daylight within the building to decrease the need for lighting, and to make the place, not only from an energy perspective, make it a more pleasant place to work within. So again, another balancing act in how that's done. I'm pretty happy, I'll say, just as a general comment, on the direction the elevations have been migrating. But we'll see how that goes when we meet with the planning board and the architectural review committee, and that's scheduled for next month.
Tentatively scheduled.
Yes, sir. Nothing has been submitted yet.
That's correct.
Because we didn't want to submit to them until we had some feedback from the public and some, see what we could address, accommodate with what is being presented to those groups.
Kurt, I heard you talk in very general terms about quote-unquote some comments. Were there, I overheard some specific comments that I think were specific enough that add to the sort of the architectural appropriateness of the building. Could you elaborate more on some of those, but also maybe share with us an estimate of how that impacts costs? I still don't have a good understanding of how doing it one way as opposed to another, and I don't know how much money we want to spend in competitive bidding, trying to really assess the different architectural styles if you already know in advance that that's going to add 200% to the cost of X, Y, and Z.
We didn't get into a percentage. Part of our challenge, and I didn't get into a specific dollar amount in estimating, when we were dealing with Bar and Bar. What we were trying to do in the case with working with precast manufacturers there are some things that they can accommodate for a reasonable price, and some things, some detailing, the amount of detailing typically that you add increases cost, like brick panels inset in the concrete facade. And specifically it was the parking deck that where we were addressing those incremental costs. As we look at it, our sense is that that's not going to be the driving factor, because the facades along Gothic Street, it actually returns around at the People's Institute side of the building, because the People's Institute set back 20, 30 feet off the curb line. We don't want to bring a parking deck right up to the curb line, or the sidewalk line, I should say, and then be coming past the People's Institute up Gothic Street and see that fin sticking up in the air. So that actually returns back approximately the depth of the offset of the front yard setback for the People's Institute. But I'm getting off on a tangent probably, Rob, I apologize, but some of those issues, we don't think that the detailing of the facade while it may add incremental cost to the deck, and I'm trying to not be specific because we don't have specifics there, but in general, that's not going to be the driving factor of the cost of the deck. What will be more problematic in the cost of the deck itself is the irregular geometry of the site, and the fact that, you know, it's not just a rectangle that you can come in and construct, you know, straightforward. So that tight geometry and the ramping that's going on will be more of an issue than adding a little bit of detail, brick panels, little overhangs. We also introduced, in response to some feedback that we had at the tech review meeting with the department heads, which was about a month ago, on, you know, where we were and talking about utilities. I mean, the first thing that we have to do in this process is to relocate a storm line that presently goes through where, you're all aware, but the public generally isn't, I think, that goes through the present PD parking lot. That will have to be moved before we can construct a new building there. So the design for that that storm relocation and the conversations with the utility companies, electrical, telephone, cable, those which tend to have a long process, those have been ongoing for months on, you know, how we can go about those. Those designs are a lot further along than some other aspects, like interior details of the building, because those are the ones that had to be done first. But I'm not even sure how I got to that particular discussion.
Can I interject a little bit?
Sure.
Rob, just in response to your question about competitive bidding, vetting different designs and things like that, I mean, that's really why you have your CM, because they can do that for you rapidly based on their having built many things many ways. And so that's what they bring to the table, is that if you build it this way, it'll probably cost you this. If you build it that way, it costs you this, but if you do this, maybe that's your middle ground to get you where you want to be. And that's really why you have them, so those two can go through that process rapidly and start identifying the cost factors that are there.
And so at what point then would this committee start to see some of those design elements emerge and have an understanding of the cost? What's the time frame for that?
Now that we have a CM on board,
Right, which
I think pretty rapidly.
It was impossible up till a minute ago.
I think pretty rapidly, because that's, as I was alluding, I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question, but that was good, Juanita. That's why we've been talking to Bar and Bar all along, because we don't want to get, I don't want to say all along, more recently.
For the last week or two.
Yes, for a few weeks, so that the decisions that we were making, or the directions we were going, addressed our programmatic needs for the police facility. We have issues of regulations and guidelines that we need to adhere to, central business district, architectural, planning, zoning, all of those. And then, so in addition, so you've got the regulations, the codes, the programmatic issues of the police department. We have a pretty good understanding of what's needed for the PD to function, and then we've got how are we going to build it and keep it at a reasonable cost. So that's why that teamwork, I'll say, is so important, and that's why we've begun already with that. So, and there will be some discussion on, what do you feel is more important, A or B? Because sometimes there are conflicting positions that we need direction. We can go either way, but we will need.
Competing aesthetics and budgets.
True. Is that fair enough, Chief? I'm not sure if I addressed where we needed to go there. But.
Well, you're representing the full Gilliam-Bannock team, so, the committee, if you have any questions specifically to Kurt, I'm going to give Ray an opportunity to speak if he so wishes what he heard, and then I'll give our newcomers, Bar and Bar, an opportunity to address the committee on what they heard, because, again, this is the feedback loop that we're trying to get. So we understand as a committee where we are in position to continue to move forward in the direction that
Before we move on, I mean, I don't know if you overheard some of the comments to Berkshire Design or to Teagan Bond. I mean, did you guys want to add anything to Kurt's comments in terms of some of the interactions that you had that you think would be useful for the community here?
Rick Klein, Berkshire Design Group. The only thing that I could possibly add is there were a number of members of the First Churches that were here and expressed an interest in seeing, perhaps for the first time, what was happening adjacent to their property. And we had some discussions about a proposal that we've put forth on paper for probably the first time for them to see. And so we had some general discussions about that, and it was reinforced that at this point for us it's first blush and it's a proposal, and we're going to come to them and have more in-depth discussions about it. And what we had to put something on paper for tonight. We kept all of the dumpsters, the parking spaces, the different things that they had are still on the plan. They're in different locations, but they're all there. And clearly we hadn't gone to them yet, but we proposed it.
This committee had received some concerns about the greenery, the arbor, the trees, et cetera, that are around, and I think, Rick, to your credit, you did a really great job at sort of replacing anything that was lost. In fact, did you get any further comment from anybody here about sort of some of the shrubs, the trees, the greenery around the project?
No, the only real comment that came up was the trees between the People's Institute and the proposed parking deck. And I pointed out how we kept the parking deck 15 feet off the property line where there is no sideline setback there. We could have gone right to the property line, but we kept it back so that all of those trees, or almost save one perhaps, tree that's there, the one that I said when save one, there's one that leans way over. But all the other trees are going to stay on purpose, and we did that on purpose. And I pointed that out, and that was quite a nice feature.
Thank you.
Dana Huff with Ty and Bond, and I must have been on the wrong side of the room because people weren't too concerned about drainage and sanitary. No.
They're concerned, they just don't know it yet.
Well, Dana Huff with Ty and Bond, and as I said, I was on the wrong side of the room because people weren't concerned with the drainage and the stormwater yet, sanitary yet, but maybe they will in here.
Great, thanks. Kurt, thank you.
Mr. Kinghart.
Yes. Some of the small concerns I heard were, is the glass really going to be that color blue? And is the brick going to be that color red or green or whatever? And I think everybody has to understand that in the evolution process of putting together a project like this, the first step is to take the big blocks and make them fit in the space we have. And we've done that, and it works for the police department. The next step is to try and get some more detail and definition to the building. What you see up there may not really be the colors that ends up. Obviously, when color selections are made, it's all done on a rendering, and everybody will have input as to what the colors will be. Glass can come in any color. Brick comes in millions of different colors. So what you see up there may not be the end product. It's primarily just for show right now. It's someone's idea of what they think looks good, but everybody else's input may be different as we move along. But that level of detail will start to develop now that we know the big pieces fit on the site and we know it can work. Now we can start doing more development of all the small pieces so you can see the details that'll happen on the garage and the building and the glass and whatever else you need to see. It takes time, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of coordination with all the disciplines. So it's not something that just generates overnight on a computer. It's a long, arduous process to make it work.
Committee questions for Mr. Kinghorn? And the committee will have our own discussion if necessary. Bar and Bar. Mr. Quadro, welcome again.
Thank you. We're very glad to be here, and it's nice to be working once again in Northampton. Just finished up the Cooley-Dixon Hospital. And, offers me an opportunity to get up and see my mom and dad once a week. That being said, I think the largest concern, and certainly a very valid concern, is the abutting neighbors. Ms. Bateman, 43, is it your address?
Yeah, 43 Center.
43. It's filled with professional offices. They see patients, a lot of psychologists, I gather. And it's really has to do with the amount of construction noise and construction activity that will be occurring on the site, approximately 15 to 20 feet away from their offices. And we specifically talked about ways to maybe mitigate the noise by putting acoustical panels on windows, etc. But my suggestion to those people was to wait and see. You know, don't lose your daylight at this point in time. You're going to have excavators in there. It's going to be background noise. I think the biggest bit of noise will be really pounding on the steel when the structure goes up to try and get a piece to fit. But you know, you have constant traffic through the through Gothic Street, through Center Street, and I don't think we're going to be much more than that. We'll have the trucking and hauling out of the back of the site down low, well below where the occupancy is at this point. So my suggestion is just kind of take it easy, relax a little bit. Let's see what happens. We've given our card out. If there is an issue during construction, they're free to come and see us. We'll help them through the process. We've worked at Children's Hospital, as I explained to them before, very, very close proximity to adjacent buildings, and we have had to do that. We've actually had to go in and construct acoustical panels to put over the windows. That was an absolute necessity. And we're only talking inches away here. We're fairly well away, and hopefully it'll work out for them. It's something they'll be able to tolerate. And the period of time will probably be, the bad period of time will be about 3 months. That'll be through the site work, the foundations, and the steel erection. And after that, it shouldn't be too bad.
Bill, did anybody approach you to talk at all? And if not, I would appreciate some comment on it, on two issues. One related to some parking displacement that's going to happen, and two, disruption to the merchant trade along Center Store, possible potential disruption because of the parking and the traffic flows. I know there's already been some discussion about changing traffic patterns during the construction process.
Well, we haven't, we don't think we're changing traffic patterns.
We're going to try to keep it two ways.
During the construction of the police station, we're going to maintain the parking for the police in front of the police station, both the existing and the new. We're not going to have a site entrance off of Center Street. Our site entrance is going to be off of Gothic Street, and we intend to come in from Main Street, down Gothic, turn into our site, turn around and go back out the Main Street entrance. What we don't want to do is get into the neighborhoods off of, by Bright Street. We don't want to be going by the People's Institute because of the heavy daycare activity. You know, twice a day people are dropping off and picking up their children. So we thought we were, and we hope we are, we're doing a service by, you know, just doing the roundabout route instead of going through the neighborhoods. The only parking displacement that we talked about specifically was for the church, and there are two, it's two, right? 2 or 3. 2 or 3. We're going to maintain that parking throughout the construction. There may be a period of time where they can't come in from one way or another, especially when we are constructing the parking deck. They will lose access from Gothic Street. They'll have to go down Center Street, and that alley will now become a 2-way alley. But that will be maintained. We're going to maintain the piece of, it's the courthouse parking now, correct, Chief?
Part of the courthouse parking.
Right, part of that. We're going to maintain that all through Phase 1, which is the construction of the new police station. So we're trying to give as much as we can. We're going to maintain access for the police department to their garages during the construction of the new building as well. Gothic, Center Street, we shouldn't be bothering.
Right.
We really should. Any other questions while I'm standing up here?
Thank you.
Okay.
Fellow committee members, a lot of you saw these drawings for the first time. Any thoughts, considerations that need to be brought up here?
Chief, I wondered where we are. The intermodal stuff looks great in terms of the leads. Are we? What phase are we at in terms of their input to the design process? That maybe Ray.
Well, I was going to jump. I can jump to agenda item 5, which is a report on
Okay.
Dave Pomerantz's vendor. You answer that question now and check it off my list here.
It's fine, we had all the various players, and I know intermodal's a big, is an important part of that as well, in terms of informing the design around lead certifications.
Well, as part of the update, the geothermal studies, David had approached me and my co-chair about where they were and the fact that they desired to do another 400-foot well, which is much more expansive than the wells we've already had, the test wells we've had drilled there. They originally came to us with a $3,000 estimate. They could do it quick. I felt as co-chair, given the authority I have, that I could approve that appropriation. But they later came back with an estimate of $11,000. And since that time, there's also been, and I'm probably saying stuff that David's going to say, there's some rethinking about the geothermal for various different reasons. You know, the difficulty of the site, the fact that the walls would be covered by the parking structure. Even if we did geothermal, fairly expensive. I think you saw the charges of $350,000. That doesn't make the HVAC go away. We still have to have a fully functioning HVAC system as a backup to the geothermal because we're a 24/7 building. Geothermal goes by and it's winter, the building freezes. And if it's summer, we melt. Sort of like now. But, sorry, Dave.
The way you complain it, you're used to it.
Yeah.
So at this point, CES, which is the mechanical engineering and, mechanical, electrical, plumbing design engineers for the project, and intermodal, we're sort of in a discussion phase about, do we proceed with the geothermal? Do we investigate any further? The lead HVAC system that's been developed, which gets us the points that we want and is a much more energy efficient system than sort of the baseline that was originally looked at. We're still discussing it, but there is a system that's already been designed. It's just a question now of, do we even look at geothermal beyond what they've already done with their initial cut? And that's a discussion we're going to have with CES and intermodal.
And since since their first look at it, I know photovoltaic was also mentioned. Is that where have those discussions gone?
The extent of those so far, Dave, have been to look at, regardless of what heating and cooling system is put into the police facility, to look at the potential for photovoltaics for electricity as part of not only being leads for lead points, just because it's going to provide us, if the numbers look good, provide us with electricity for running that facility, as the chief said, is 24/7. And electricity rates are only going to keep going up. So if in fact that is going to happen, we're going to have to look at the structural issues involved with putting photovoltaics on the facility.
So will they be coming forward with another report at some point? That's basically what we authorized them to work on, was sort of a more expansive. Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Other thoughts on the design, folks? So I'm getting a sense that there's some satisfaction here, the public input gave us a good direction. We're still going to maintain the direction we're headed in. Further design enhancements that will be brought forth. Certainly with bringing CMAR, bar and bar on board, now we get really into the meat and the detail of the matters.
Is there, if people want to get information to us, is there a process that we could set up?
They can call through me. All our names are on I think our email addresses are on the website too, David? Mm-hmm. Is that right? So that's one function. And let me bring that up. We do have a website, the Northampton Police Building Committee, that you can access through northamptonmass.gov. Click on the boards and committees and you'll get prompted, and also through the northamptonpd.com website, there's a link. I'll bring it to the committee work. A lot of the material that was presented tonight, again, had been worked on until today, and the committee had a chance to look at it the first time, and I know the media was all over me today to provide all this stuff in electronic format, but we will get together with our webmaster, Counselor Narkowitz, and see how much of this we can get posted, so people that were unable to attend tonight will be able to look at it. Any other committee comments?
And just in following up, as Ray was talking about how the design will continue to evolve now that we have bar and bar. We're going to try to check back in with the public and let them know, maybe through the website, maybe through other means, to let them know when sort of the next evolution is ready for people to look at.
Absolutely. I think right now our meeting schedule is going to start to accelerate more. We've been at kind of a slower pace while we get all the big contracts and procedures out of place. As Bar and Bar gets a closer look and starts working hand in hand with the architects and all the involved players here, you know, we'll be meeting more frequently, more detail, and that can get out to the public through that process.
And it bears repeating that all those meetings are open.
Of course,
They're all
and
published.
we have been putting them on the city's calendar.
Which also gives an
posted on our
opportunity, you know, in terms of a formal process. I mean, we have open meetings, and the few times that people have shown up, we've offered a time for comment, and they're there for a reason, so.
Yeah, I just thought it would be, especially because the TV station's here, that it would be important to say, you know, to clarify how they bring the information to us.
That's great. Thank you for reminding me.
Where are the meetings posted, did you say?
City Hall?
You mean on a bulletin board?
Yep.
And also on the city's electronic calendar as well.
So it doesn't come by a listserv like the planning board information?
We can ask it to be added to
Because
that.
that would be a lot more helpful.
Yeah, for
Because I
people who
think a lot of
subscribe.
people read that as
Yeah.
what's happening in the city.
We can add that, yeah.
Okay. Agenda item 5, updates to committee. We already did with the geothermal studies. The next thing on our schedule is tomorrow night, the city council meeting.
You're all gonna be there?
No.
The co-chair and I will be representing the committee, the mayor, and
Sure you don't wanna come?
the finance director.
I'll be there.
We'll be presenting the financial authorization we already had $1 million set aside for authorization for early expenses, which we haven't spent yet, frankly. And this will be for the balance as we know it, the 12.6 from the original $2,003. The reason for that, we have to authorize the money for the city to execute the contract with the CMAR because of the cost of the project that's required. So that authorization vote will take place tomorrow night. You're welcome to come, as Rob said.
Just to bear repeating, remember that the original number was a 2003 number, so understand that we reasonably expect that once the numbers start coming in real, that it's likely not to duplicate the 2003 number. I mean, Juanita's shaking her head here in the business. How much have commodity prices as it relates to this risen since then?
Well, these two can correct me if I'm wrong, but recently concrete has gone up as much as 40% in the last year alone. And steel is, when you come, we'll tell you how much it costs.
And I mean, all metals have gone up. Right? Price of timber has also risen dramatically.
Timber not as greatly. It's more the transportation of the product, the gas prices that greatly affect that type of thing. Because to transport it, you're paying considerably more on fuel costs. So you're getting huge fuel surcharges on material goods.
Generally, in Connecticut and in Massachusetts, the Department of Public Works, the guidelines they've been following is that inflation has been running 6 to 6.5% per year for construction, total labor and material. So if you amortize that over 3 or 4 years, you'll see it compounds pretty quickly and gets pretty significant.
It's interesting you talk about the concrete. One of the discussions we had was that the more elaborate parking structure is a concrete company that isn't local. They're far, far away. And the only ones that produce is a certain tinted concrete that would be more expensive and transportable, where there's some other alternate solutions that local concrete companies can replicate at lower cost. Those are the kind of things we're looking at already and get into the meat with the CMAR. So.
One of the other issues that I want to alert this committee on from an advocacy perspective, and it's beyond the scope of our committee's work, it's a financing scope, but this is a project that the city needs. I think all of us are on this committee because we believe that. The one contribution I can't make to this committee from the area of expertise relates to the municipal bond marketplace, which is going to get more challenging. There's interest rates are going up, but that problem is further compounded in that there's less people interested in investing in it. And supply and demand says when there's fewer people interested in buying your product, which is your debt, that could mean that prices are going up. And, ever since that bridge collapsed out in Minneapolis, cities are lining up to do municipal projects, which is going to flood the market with people interested in borrowing money. And so when you have a lot of people out there wanting investor money, and you don't have a lot of investor money going up, the city could be in a position where the cost of that debt should be going up. And I really think we need to implore, and I'm saying this as much for the benefit of our city councilors here, implore our councilors to get, to keep the pedal to the metal on this, because I think delays will not only hurt us in the form of commodity price increases, but also in financing increases, given the sense that I'm getting from the municipal managers that I talk to from time to time.
Okay. Another update, the Gothic Street lot, literally, the close of a legislative session after midnight on their deadline. The legislation allowing for the 99-year lease was attached to a bond bill that could have been individually item vetoed by the governor. The legislator passed it, and the mayor put a call to the governor's office to make sure that wasn't one of the things he X'd off the bond bill. So it did finally go through, which authorizes to enter into a lease with DCAM, the Division of Capital Asset Management, for that property. So it's right down to the wire. There was some.
Is Claire still in the room? She left.
Yeah, she did.
She really stepped up big for, she really put some overtime in that getting.
Her, well, Terry Anderson too did a lot of work, Peter, so we appreciate it. That is what I have on my agenda. Is there any other business any of the council committee members want to bring up? Hearing none.
Will we set our next meeting, or are we going to wait until CMAR has a chance to get on board?
I think they need to sit down in greater detail now that they know it's formal. Our anticipation is probably usually another one first or second week in September. First thing, having not a lot of controversy about the design, I think we'll be in a better position to move forward with approaching the other committees that we need to approach. I'll set up.
Move to adjourn.
Motion adjourned from Councilor Erkowitz. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5 minutes before 8. What a great team.
For those of you from the public who came, thank you very much.
Next time I
Appreciate
come up, John, I'll
it. Really
bring
do.
you up.